Top five. Who's your top five?
Top five, ladies and gentlemen, top five, where I come up with a top five list and I give it to Vince to give a commentary on, keeping it in theme as we are reviewing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which features the Spider-Man that a lot of people know, but some of you may not know, to be fair. If you don't follow comic books like that, or if you don't follow the comic book movies, you may not be aware that there is indeed a now long established second Spider-Man who has the real identity of Miles Morales.
Yes.
Who is a young African/Puerto Rican young man in the role of Spider-Man.
Or ask any young person under the age of 20. I mean, I guess we'll talk about it. It's sort of fascinating. We're calling him the second Spider-Man. I think you're showing your age a little bit.
Because for some people, he's their Spider-Man.
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah, you know, because he has been around that long now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sidebar real quick, and then we'll get to it. One of my favorite memories was taking my nephew into a comic shop maybe 15 years ago. And he was staring at a statue kind of action figure, and he was staring at it. And I was like, what? He was like, wow, I didn't know there was a white Green Lantern.
I'm glad you said that, Vincent. And that's because, for those people don't know, because for a long time, the Green Lantern, who was historically a white character when he started off. But in the 70s, there was a black Green Lantern that was created, John Stewart, who would, in the, I guess, late 90s and 2000s, really took off because he was the designated Green Lantern on the Justice League cartoon, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. For some people, it is the best iteration of a lot of these superheroes, live action or animated form. And for a lot of people growing up on that series, their Green Lantern was a black man. To that point, tonight's top five are top five superheroes gone black.
Okay.
So these are superheroes who at one time were white, but for many people now, and you be the judge, their better iteration or more popular iteration is black.
Wow, and you got 5 of them.
I got 5.
All right.
Now, I'm not saying all of them necessarily are better. You will be the judge of
I
this.
will be the judge.
But I will start with number 5. This is Dr. Midnight.
Dr. Midnight.
AKA Beth Chapel.
Yes.
From the Stargirl series.
Yes.
That was on the CW.
Yes.
And also on HBO Max.
Absolutely.
Beth Chapel, who was played by Angelica Washington, is a main character in Stargirl. She's a brilliant student at Blue Valley High whose intellectual nature made her a bit of an outcast among her peers.
Sure.
But she formed an unlikely friendship with Courtney Whitmer, Stargirl, Yolanda Montez, and Rick Tyler as they work together to stop the villains of the past, aided by the artificial intelligence of the Golden Age JSA member Charles McNider, the blind white doctor who was the original
Dr. Midnight.
Dr. Midnight.
All right.
Beth works with her friends to continue the legacy of the Justice Society of America as the new super heroine, Dr. Midnight. Now, I don't know if you were ever a fan of Stargirl. I watched like the first 2 seasons, and then I realized this is a show that's not for me.
Sure.
But I did recognize the quality of it.
Okay.
And the reason why I kept going back to that show was it was a cute show. It was a fun show. But I actually just fell in love with Angelica Washington's performance of Beth Chapel, a.k.a. Dr. Midnight.
Okay.
Because she was a super intelligent young lady who recognized that she was an outcast to everybody else in the school, but it did not stop her from being very outgoing, very curious, very brave. And from the moment I saw her, I said, wow, she is really doing great work. And Dr. Midnight in the comics, you know, when he was originated back in the 40s, was pretty much just a run-of-the-mill vigilante, except that he was blind.
Right.
So and he came up with these goggles that allowed him to see in the dark. And I guess there was some kind of cool concept to him. They did at one time make him, I think they made him a woman again at some time.
Yeah, that's where she comes from.
But when they made her a black woman in the comics, and they kind of like put her more in tights as opposed to like, because he always had more of like a jacket and cape type of thing. It just didn't. I just didn't buy it. I just didn't buy it. This I buy. This
All right.
I like.
All right.
And I think this is the best iteration of Dr. Midnight.
All right.
What do you say?
We'll allow it.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
All right.
All right. Number 4.
Number 4.
Aqualad.
Aqualad.
Aqualad, who historically
White guy.
was a white guy, was a white kid, was a white sidekick of Aquaman from the character from the 40s. And then would go on to live in filmation, animation as the sidekick on the Aquaman short. And since he was the sidekick, he was also the, part of the Teen Titans cartoon series in the 60s as well.
One of the harder Mego action figures to find.
Is he really?
Because of the gloves. Because they get lost.
Yeah. Do you have an Aqualad?
I don't.
No?
I'm not really a Mego person. I just know.
You know it's a hard one.
Right, it's a hard one to find.
4, Young Justice, which is another great animated DC series. You should check it out, ladies and gentlemen. That proposed to do kind of like a reworking of the sidekicks as a team in the DC universe. They totally remade the Aqualad character to a character named Calderon, voiced by Carrie Payton. He was an original character and protege of Aquaman with the same powers to be able to breathe underwater. But he also had this hydrokinesis, which was the ability to create like dense water weapons and stuff like that. They actually developed his character greatly over the 4 seasons. He would go on in the 3rd season to actually mature to become actual Aquaman in the Justice League. And he was also revealed, just as a sign of the times, to be a bisexual man who lived a bisexual lifestyle in the final season. You saw there on screen. A fully formed character that in 4 seasons, they did more growth with this Aqualad on Young Justice than they did with the original Aqualad in, 50 years of comics?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, if you thought Aquaman was a joke in the comics, ladies and gentlemen, Aqualad was the punchline that they threw away.
Right.
So, I would say that Aqualad, the black Aqualad, for a lot of people, became the Aqualad, so much so that they retrofit him into the comics because of how popular he was on Young Justice.
Absolutely. And again, much like everyone we've talked about, since this is the one that most people know from mass media, this is the one.
He's the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
All right. I approve.
This next one might be controversial.
Okay.
Because I do believe that this may prove to be the better iteration.
Okay.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Sam Wilson.
Oh.
As Captain America.
Captain America.
Now, Sam Wilson, who historically in the comics was the Falcon.
He was the Falcon, yeah.
But in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he starts as the Falcon, portrayed by Anthony Mackie. He would be the sidekick, as in the comics, of Steve Rogers, Captain America. Of course, Steve Rogers, the Captain America of old from World War II, transplanted into today's time, who has since in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least apparently retired as Captain America. We can't say that he's died, but he's retired as Captain America. And the mantle has been passed on to the Falcon, who officially kind of like embraces the mantle in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus series. Time will tell whether or not he will be a better Captain America and prove to be everybody's Captain America. It's probably safe to say that he may not be everybody's Captain America just yet. The character becomes Captain America in the comic books for a significant run. And I think because of the years and years of Captain America stories, much like with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, any of your long-running stories, they tend to start kind of like recycling the same type of bits. Right? The idea of Sam Wilson, a black man, representing Captain America, and the different types of stories that can be pulled from there, they definitely play with it in the comics. And I think they start to lean on it a little bit with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because we've even talked about it. It's interesting how quickly the Captain America Steve Rogers movies, as much as we enjoyed them, quickly they become Avengers movies, almost. Right? And Sam Wilson's Captain America, I think, offers really the first opportunity since really the first Captain America movie for it to really be a Captain America movie that feels wholly different than anything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I agree. It's actually similar to something I'm going to say in the review. I think the tension between the concept of Captain America and race, in this case blackness, really, as you said, affords some different narrative potential than you have with sort of, you know, a tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man representing America. Like there's no tension there. Like everybody is always on board with that. And like you said, I thought one of the very smart things about a series that I think was smart was them leaning into that.
Yeah.
Like who gets to be patriotic. So yeah, I agree. Hit the gavel. All right.
I'm 3 for 3.
3 for 3.
Okay.
All right.
Number two is a no-brainer.
All right, and that would be?
That would be Nick Fury.
Nick Fury? Yeah.
Nick Fury, historically, for those who don't know, believe it or not, was a white man.
Yeah.
A white man who was a soldier in World War II.
Even. Right.
Who then, through the miracle of whiteness, lasts forever.
Comics.
Yeah, comics. It's comic stuff. Makes him long-lived and becomes like the super soldier leader of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
In the Ultimate comic book universe from the, now 90s, now I think about it, they decided that their Nick Fury in that universe was going to be fashioned after Samuel Jackson.
Right.
And that's pretty much the face that they drew for Samuel Jackson in that universe, which proved to be so popular that it is that iteration of Nick Fury, that iteration of the Avengers, that more or less is what you see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. It's sort of a version of the 007 issue that they're having now, that this sort of white man as this super spy seems old-fashioned.
Yeah.
And they figured out a way. Now, appropriately enough, following Captain America, you know, it ended up being Nick Fury because Mark Miller, who created Black Nick Fury, apparently, when he came up, when they were, you know, as you said, doing these new versions of these old characters, apparently he floated Captain America being black.
Oh,
because much like the Truth, his theory was if the United States was experimenting on these soldiers, they would have experimented on a black man. First.
Right.
And so to him, he thought Captain America could have been a black man. Marvel said that, you know, okay, that you going a little bit too far with that.
Gave you Nick.
Right. Well, no. He said, since I can't do Captain America.
So then he went with Nick.
Right, because he thought black people in the military should be represented. And that's how you get Nick Fury.
All right.
And number one is, of course,
I'll let you say it.
Oh, of course it's Jon Stewart.
You're wrong. It's not Jon Stewart.
How is Jon Stewart not on the list?
One, because I wanted to zag. I wanted to zag.
It's not a zag if it's not accurate.
Well, hear me out.
Oh,
hear me out.
Sake. All right, go ahead.
Hear me out. Hear me out.
Go ahead.
One, we've already extolled the virtues of Jon Stewart. We just did it. And Jon Stewart should be black, but the shame of it is, as much as people like your nephew, you're like, oh my God, didn't know, like, Green Lantern, was white, misconstrue that. DC is not going to let Green Lantern. They're not going to let it go of Hal Jordan. Right?
All right.
So as long as they're not going to let go of it, we're still living on Justice League dreams.
All right. This is real comic-y. This is a real comic-y episode. Who's number one?
Number one is the only time that a superhero was black and went black.
And that would be?
Your favorite hero.
Okay.
When, from the comics, Black Lightning became Black Vulcan on the Super Friends.
Boy, you are really doing, this is a real deeply comic episode.
But it's based on movies and TV.
It's based on movies and TV. You want to tell the story?
I will tell the story.
Black Lightning becomes Black Vulcan?
Now, Black Vulcan, ladies and gentlemen, is an African-American superhero on the animated series The Super Friends.
Yes.
Produced by Hanna-Barbera, voiced by one Buster Jones. Black Vulcan debuted in September of 1977. Unlike most of the Super Friends, Black Vulcan was not a pre-existing DC Comics character.
Right.
Technically. This is particularly notable because DC's roster did include an African-American superhero with electricity-based powers, much like Black Vulcan, who was named Black Lightning. Black Lightning could not be used on the Super Friends due to a dispute between DC and Black Lightning's creator, Tony Isabella.
Right, and the dispute was Tony Isabella actually owned part of the ownership of Black Lightning.
Right.
And unlike the creators of all of the other characters, DC hadn't screwed him out of his rights.
Exactly.
With the contracts. So the dispute was DC just didn't want to pay him.
Exactly. If Black Lightning was used on the show, DC would have had to split whatever licensing fee they got for Black Lightning with Tony Isabella.
Right.
And DC wasn't having
DC wasn't going to do that.
So what they did was they created Black Vulcan.
Not cool, DC.
Not cool at all,
cool.
DC. Black Vulcan, who was a horrible looking character. He was horrible.
He had no pants. Like the people of color didn't have pants.
He had no pants. His
it's like him, Samurai, and
El Diablo.
El Diablo.
Yeah, that's one the superhero.
They were the minority superheroes, and none of them had pants.
None of them had pants. Do you remember what Black Vulcan's catchphrase was?
Didn't he just yell out Black Vulcan?
No. His catchphrase was "Great Lightning." So that's my zag.
That's your zag.
And when a black superhero actually went black.
All right. You don't get a gavel for that.
I don't get a gavel for that?
No gavel for that.
That's a good zag.
No gavel.
You know what? I'll give you that.
I have to have the integrity of the gavel.
I'll give you that. The only reason why I don't deserve the gavel is because there actually has been a Black Lightning TV series.
Yes.
If there hadn't been a Black Lightning TV series, some people might not never know of Black Lightning. They might only know of Black Vulcan.
They might only know of Black Vulcan, and now they know the rest of the story.
Yeah. And knowing is half the battle.
The other half is laser beams and violence.